Tengoku Daimyo, or Heavenly Delusion, had a very interesting setup for its first episode. You have two sides of this world we're introduced to. One is an orphanage in a remote location, separated from the rest of the world, which is honestly some Promised Neverland shit right there. I kinda was getting heavy Promised Neverland vibes from this orphanage or school place, but not to compare the series to another. Next we have the actual world, which is presented to us in a post-apocalyptic setting. From what we know of that so far is that there's a quote-unquote collapse that happened during some point of time, and there's a certain amount of survivors left. Some either have died due to starvation or possibly a lack of other living necessities. Then we're introduced to some other survivors still out there besides our main characters. And on the topic of main characters, there's an interesting perspective change from some of the kids in this orphanage, and obviously our main protags. I honestly thought it would be that one girl from the orphanage, Mimihime, who figures out the fact there's a world beyond where they are, rather than it being that Tokyo kid. In a sense, I guess Mimihime did, since she said she has a hunch of something being out there. But I'm guessing since Tokyo found out about it first, especially from having confirmation from the director of the school orphanage, he might get curious and like try to find out how we can see the world beyond, or maybe even try to escape the orphanage like they do in the try to do in the Promised Neverland. Okay, I need to stop comparing this to the Promised Neverland. Anyways, I could be wrong and completely off the mark here, but it does kind of seem like they're setting up something for him, so I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with this. Moving on, I want to take a moment to talk about the animation and art direction for the show so far. Production IG is really out here flexing the capabilities of the potential for this series. Right from the get-go, the episode hooks you with its uniquely charming atmosphere. Pretty much almost every scene can be screenshot worthy, be it thanks to its layout or a beautiful background. The art director Yuji Kaneko and director of photography Kentaro Waki blew it out of the park here. There's ambitious work with the camera when it moves and smart use of focus. Tons of flexibility with the character designs, where at certain points they could go for a goofier approach during comedy or lighthearted moments. I hope to see more of this type of freedom in the designs in future episodes because it works really well with the designers' simple yet flexible character designs. Anyways, getting back to the plot, during Kiriko and Maru's encounter with the thugs when they were visiting their place, one of the guys mentioned a quote-unquote tomato heaven, which seems like they're gonna try to get to that orphanage, considering like the camera and stuff was like panning back to like the tomatoes at the orphanage. Now that would be pretty interesting to see if they actually do somehow end up at the orphanage, but I could be wrong here. It could just probably be some other type of tomato garden or something. Also, sidetracking for a moment, then when Kiro and Maru settled at that old lady's inn, and Kiro went to go to the hot spring. It's so fucking random but hilarious when she just tried to kiss herself on the mirror. Like, I was so confused of what the fuck was going on. Like, it was such a weird thing to just throw in, but regardless of all that, I think it was a pretty peak scene. Later on, the innkeeper lady brought up a monster going around the area or town at night, and Kiriko mentioned a quote-unquote man-eating monster, so this had me thinking, you know, it might be related to that giant bird we saw flying in that thunderstorm earlier in the episode. It didn't really seem very relevant until then, so I didn't really give much thought into what it could be, but this also feeds the thought that the quote-unquote collapse that was mentioned could be related to these type of monster species. Similar to that giant bird, monsters could have attacked the world or like country, leading to the current situation. And of course, my guess about the giant bird being the monster was correct, as shown at the end of the episode. Now, speaking of the end of the episode, the way Kiriko just immediately passed out, not sure if it's because of the fatigue or potentially the fact that the lady put drugs in their food to knock them out, which I think might be more probable, because you know, maybe she wanted to protect them from the monster, since I guess it makes sense she sees them as kids who may not probably fully understand what they're trying to deal with. And the shot with her holding the rifle and the bird at the window was so damn cold. The actual goosebumps right there. You know, that was just such a peak scene. Like, I just love that shot with the bird at the window and then like the lady holding the rifle, like being awake, like ready to fucking shoot the bird. Overall, the episode was a very promising start to the series and a good setup for the underlying mystery aspects. I'm looking forward to seeing how this builds upon itself down the road. A lot to discuss with this episode. Crazy reveals, the Yuri, the Sakuga, the kids wilding, and overall craziness. Let's just get into it. The start of this episode was kind of wild. At first, it was just Tokyo trying to find out about the outside world and trying to comprehend why Mimi wants to try going out there. I'm just wondering when they're gonna try to do something that like actually get outside. That kid Tokyo was talking to about it, which I can't be bothered to remember his name right now. There's a very interesting detail shown about him. It seems like he has some kind of bruise marks over his body, or more specifically his arm. Now this is just my personal theory, but considering we also see that detail pop up again later in the episode, I'm thinking it's some kind of disease that they're infected with, which if worse comes to worse, it could become chronic. Now onto the weirder parts of this. I'm once again baffled by the randomness of this series. First, we had Kiriko trying to kiss herself in the mirror, and now we have Mimi sending nudes, the fucking mob, aka Shiro. I don't get what the fuck is up with these kind of scenes. It's just dropping out of nowhere. Picking up after the end of the last episode with the monster, it appears I was right about them being drugged. The lady definitely did put something in their food. Now, I saw a theory pop up earlier that, it might be humans that she cooked, aka the previous guests of the inn. Which made me wonder, had Kiriko and Maru now woken up, would they be food for that monster? I wouldn't really put it against that lady for doing that. I don't know, she's probably kind of sus. And let me just say, that fight with Kiro and Maru versus the bird was pure Sakuga. I was about to bust from just seeing that crisp animation for the fire and everything. The animators really did an amazing job. Especially with the part where they changed the whole aspect ratio when they were trying to approach the monster. A really genius way to build up tension from the audience. The reviews that we got were pretty crazy though, with the lady saying that bird monster is her son, which makes me think why she's pulling up with a gun and possibly trying to maybe attack it if she thinks she can trust that monster. Speaking of which, it was fucking hilarious the moment she said that and just turned her back at it and instantly gets killed in the most brutal way. We all knew she had it coming for her, but it was still pretty damn funny. Maru's ability was very interesting. It reminded me of an aspect from Nier Automata, where they can hack into the enemy. It seemed kind of similar to that, except Maru can reach the monster's internal atoms, if that makes any sense. I do kind of wonder what other abilities he might have though. Going back to what I brought up earlier about those bruise marks that I mentioned might be a disease, we're shown in Kiriko's flashback that possibly someone related to Maru entrusted his safety to Kiriko, and she seemed like she was dying or just possibly in a chronic condition from those marks, which definitely confirms the theory that this might be some sort of illness spreading around. I hope they do delve more into that aspect though and let us know if it is an illness and how it affects others. Also, we had Maru's objective revealed. He was saying he has to give some kind of shot or drug to someone with the same face as him. So I think I was right in thinking that Tomato Heaven place they're actually looking for has to be that orphanage. Because Tokyo is the only one that has the same face as Maru. So this is going to be something to look forward to. Also, I wonder if this is just a coincidence or Maru and Tokyo are related in some sense. They definitely have to be related in some way, because considering how things go in the show, I don't think it's simply coincidental. Hopefully they get to that quote-unquote tomato heaven they were looking. Keep using the term interesting a lot, but I think it was pretty interesting and nice to see a whole family establishment and a farm there. And this time it doesn't seem like they're sus as shit and try to side with a monster unlike a certain someone. I thought it was pretty crazy when that one guy mistook Kiriko. Oh my god, I keep mixing up her name with Kiriko. Anyways, mistook Kiriko for another girl that looks exactly like her. And the thing about having killed her brother in a race, I don't really get the race, but I doubt it'd be far-fetched to assume they're related to each other in a way. Or another theory which aligns with what was revealed to us at the end. Maru confessing his feelings was once again left field out of fucking nowhere, but kinda still a W nonetheless. I think we can all agree Kiriko saying she's a man was the craziest twist of this episode by far. It makes so much sense now, like Kiriko was trying to do that in the mirror last episode. Not sure if they'll get into more detail about what that specifically implies about Kiriko, whether she's just transgender or if it's actually some crazy shit like soul swapping or a man's brain put into a girl's body. I personally think it might have something to do with some experimentation shenanigans. I definitely wouldn't put it against this show. But yeah, that's about it. Overall, a pretty crazy episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.